Welcome to Backstage Pass with Gail Davis, your invitation into the world of keynote speaking and event planning expertise. Join us as we pull back the curtain and dive into exclusive interviews with speaking industry experts. From seasoned speakers to master event planners, we're here to provide you with the ultimate backstage experience. Get ready to unlock valuable insights, tips, and strategies that will elevate your events and leave your audience inspired. Hello, and welcome to Backstage Pass. My name is Gail Davis, and I am thrilled to have you here, especially with our guest today, David Burkus. David is the author of Best Team Ever, and his message really resonates with me. He's one of the world's leading business thinkers. He's a best-selling author of not only this book, but 4 others, all on leadership and teamwork. He is a former business school professor whose work has been featured in the Harvard Business Review, the New York Times, and many major media outlets. He's worked with many top organizations that you've heard of, like NASA, Adobe, Pepsi, all working on the concept of how do you build a high-performing collaborative team. Welcome, David. It's just great to have you here.
Oh, Gail, it's so good to be with you and so good to be with GDA in general, one of my best teams ever that I get to work with. So this is fun.
Well, I'd like to dive in there. You spoke at our industry conference, the International Association of Speakers Bureaus, last fall. You gave what we call a masterclass. And let's just say right up front, it's a tough audience because it's all bureau agents, bureau owners who have seen and heard everyone. And you held all of our attention. I mean, that was like 3 hours, I think, wasn't it, David?
It was. 3 hours is a long time. Yeah.
I came back on fire with a concept that I really want to share with this audience today. And that is the concept of a fluid team. Do you want to describe that? And then I'll tell you how it landed with me, and we can talk about some different scenarios with our client sectors.
Yeah, love to. So this is something that's been near and dear to my heart and my research for a long time. Most of us, I think the easiest way to define it is to define what it's not. Most of us, when we think of teams in a workplace, we think of the group of people that report to a manager. And that's true, candidly, maybe 25 to 30% of the time in work. The rest of us work way more in these fluid teams than anything else. So a fluid team is a team that has to get together quickly, work together towards an objective, and then usually disbands and goes back. And this is something I've been studying since 2015, 2016. I think candidly, I got into it because my wife is an ER physician. And so every single shift, she has a fluid team. But it shows up in a lot of different contexts too. Most people, even in a corporate environment, they work on cross-functional teams and project teams that are fluid. Our world is the event space. Every single event is a fluid team between, the event planners, the corporate leaders who are working with that event planner, the vendors on site, you and I, the agency and the speaker, and we all have to come together and execute the best possible outcome for that event. And then hopefully we work together again in the future, but that project is over and we're on to the next team. And so these, honestly, if you look at modern work, fluid teams are more represented than static teams. And so it's something I've been really excited to cover, to study, and to talk to a lot of leaders about, because I don't think we do enough training in what makes a successful fluid team versus a static team.
I'm eager for you to outline that, because I know one of the things was like cadence, communications cadence. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking out my office window here and I'm seeing our event coordinators. So I remember when I heard this concept, I was like, oh, wow, they really do operate with fluid teams 4, 5, 10, 12 at any given time. And maybe they've worked with you in the past, but for the first time, they're working with you and this client. Or maybe they've done a lot. Well, Brooke just came back from an event where she was on site with 5 speakers. So really every call was a fluid team. The event contact was the same. Brooke was the same, but every speaker showed up. And I remember you've got to figure out the cadence. Like we have some speakers that aren't as responsive as other speakers. So we have to level set that with our clients. What are some of the other things that change with fluid teams?
Yeah, the two big things that can make or break a fluid team are clarity and empathy, right? And communication norms fit actually right inside of both of those. Clarity is clarity of roles and responsibilities, who's going to do what, who's going to take responsibility for what, but also what our communication norms are, what our rhythms are, right? So I think a great example of this is if you think about an event where, like a trade association or professional association, where usually there's a board turnover from year to year, there's a immediate past president and a future president, and they all bring with them different expectations about what their role should be. Some are very, very hands-on. Some very much trust the event planner or the agency that they've grown to develop and trust. It's very different for every team. So clarity of that roles and responsibilities. But then also when it comes to communication, especially empathy in the fact that it's really sort of an understanding of people. Empathy in that not everybody likes to work the way you work. I'm very, you can already tell if you're listening to this, we're only 5 minutes in. I'm very extroverted and love to jump on a call, happy to do, Zoom call, phone call, what have you. I'm a little less responsive in email. Like, it just kind of takes some time. Usually I'm on planes and what have you. So getting back to you via email is a lot more. Everybody is different. And as we kind of grow, in order to grow successful as a team, we have to have that sense of empathy and understanding. First, we have to know what to expect from everyone else. We have to stop trying to get them all to just work the way we want to work and work in a way that understands everybody's differences. And then we can come up with some certain sort of rules and communication norms and, as we say, cadence. But that can only happen after we have that sense of empathy. And you look at the highest performing teams, they actually build that sense of empathy first. And that's what leads them to the clarity of roles and responsibilities and norms that really makes them high performing.
Any tips for a corporate event planner who's undergoing or working through a major leadership change? Because they have to make decisions that ultimately the leadership has to buy into. And I'm just going through this with one long-term client, and it's a significant leadership change. Any tips?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is that we have to begin with the end in mind, to quote an old Stephen Covey quote. But that actually, if you look at, there's a lot of research that backs this up from Boyd Sakasis and others that really talk about how a shared vision and a very clear picture of this is what a successful event looks like. So if you're that event planner and you've got, maybe it's a new CEO or maybe it's a new president of the association, et cetera, and you're thinking, okay, I need to keep the autonomy that I'm used to working with this event, but I need to make sure that they're happy. Gail, I think we've said this joke to each other before. My big goal in every single event is that I want the leader to point to the event planner and go, "Where did you find this guy?" instead of, "Where did you find this guy?" Same phrase, different tonality. So we need to get really clear on that. And so that I would be very, very upfront about those questions. Hey, what does a successful event look like for you? What do you want to have happen? If it's a corporate event, there is usually a transformation. So it's not just, oh, everybody has a good time and nobody makes a career limiting move in the cocktail hour after the speeches. What we really mean is, where are we going as an organization, and how does this event help us get from where we were to where we are? Because that's going to affect everything, not just the speakers you pick. That's going to affect the agenda. I do a lot more of these, what I call key shops now. If it's a senior leadership meeting and there's 150 or 100 people in the room and they're all in leadership roles, they want something a lot more like the masterclass you were in on, much more interactive, et cetera. But that starts with understanding the change. What are we actually trying to do? Other events, a lot of other corporate events, it's perfectly fine that they want the closing speaker to just be high energy, inspirational, want to run through a wall. All of those are fine, but we need to be really clear on what does that leader want from this event and what's the transformation that's supposed to happen in this event. And then we can work backwards into roles and responsibilities, what success looks like. And as an event planner, you can pick a roster of speakers and develop an agenda much more successfully if you're clear on that first.
That is great advice. And I was just thinking over to our nonprofits who often have, a lot of times they're hiring a speaker for a luncheon, and they get a new luncheon chair every single year. So I think what you just described plays into that environment as well. You talked about transformation, and I love, I think you and I are both familiar with the PCT, and I would love for you to talk through that for you as a speaker, regardless if it's corporate, nonprofit, or a membership organization. Typically, what problem are you trying to solve? I know what makes you credible to solve it, but you can brag on yourself. And then what transformation should the client, should the audience, what should they expect to see?
Yeah. So my research, let me actually, can I go TCP if I may, right?
Okay.
My big transformation that I've studied at for the longest time, almost all of my research and now all of my work with executives comes around this idea that paying attention to the culture of the team is paramount, not the company culture. Company culture is actually just the average of every individual team, whether it's a static team or a fluid team's culture. And every leader at every level is responsible for the culture of their team. So my big transformation is exactly that. By the end of the time that we work together, your leaders are going to understand their role in shaping the culture of the team and why that positive team culture is so important for turning talent into performance. Talent is great. By all means, try and hire the most talented people you can. But talent doesn't make the team. The team makes the talent. And we've all had that experience of being a really highly motivated, highly skilled person on a terrible team that just drags us down. For most of us, it was in college, and I apologize in advance. I probably put you on that project team in college. Well, we've been there, right? So that's the transformation I look for. Credibility wise, I mean, as we hinted at, I've been a business school professor for a dozen years. I've been researching and studying this for the past 20, worked with a lot of different organizations. Now, as to problem, candidly, there's a couple different ways that transformation can solve a few different problems. So I get the call when it is new leadership, as we talked about. I get the call when it is, hey, growth has leveled out and we need to tap into higher levels of performance. I get the call when employee engagement is an issue. Those are the kind of problems because all of those are rooted in that, we probably need to take a deep look at the culture on these individual teams and give managers the tools they need to shape that positive team culture. So that's why I sort of go TCP instead, because culture solves a number of different problems.
I know you talk a lot about how organizations sometimes try to fix collaboration with more meetings, more tools, more structure, but sometimes that's not going to solve the problem. What do you think they're missing?
Yeah, candidly, systems don't usually solve people issues. I'm a little biased in this. I'm an organizational psychologist by training. When I was teaching in business school, I called myself the token psychologist because in every business school, there are accounting professors and finance professors and marketing professors, and they're great at making sure all the numbers work. But usually, like the best CFO in the world is going to be able to use their skills to point to a problem in a certain department, right? The numbers just point to where the problem is. The problem is usually a people problem. So more meetings, if they're run poorly, aren't going to solve that. You know, if you're just thinking our team doesn't trust each other, our team doesn't have a good set of communication norms, et cetera, those are first empathy issues. And candidly, they're usually trust and psychological safety issues. And more meetings, or better, even switching to a new, hey, we're all going to work in teams, or we're all switching our entire CRM system for our marketing and sales teams. Systems don't necessarily solve the problem unless the problem isn't culture. And you and I know, like 90% of the time, the problem is that sense of culture. So we have to start there. We have to make a meeting that people want to show up to. And then, candidly, that's going to make it more effective and probably eliminate the need for those more meetings to begin with.
I know that you're also doing a lot of work right now around AI and teamwork, and everybody's talking about AI. So, what are you finding? I mean, what's the impact on AI and teams? Is it helping? Is it hindering? What does it look like?
Yeah, is it helping? It could. Candidly, I'm the most reluctant AI speaker out there, right? I'll start from the beginning. You already know this. We've been listening for 10 minutes now. I'm not a technologist. I didn't work at Google. I don't have any inside track at OpenAI. What I am is an organizational psychologist, someone who studies collaboration. And one of the interesting things in organizational psychology, there's a term called collective intelligence. It's what we all want from our teams. We want the team as a whole to be smarter than any individual person or even the average of the individual people. We want to tap into a higher level of output as a team. We really do want 2 + 2 to equal 17, not just 4, right? And where I started getting in on AI is I realized that a lot of people are treating this as a tool. They're thinking about jobs to be outsourced. They're thinking about even the negative talk about AI. It's about reductions in headcounts and things like that. And they're thinking about what systems and procedures and processes can be offloaded to a generative AI tool. The real value in these tools is in achieving that level of collective intelligence. AI right now is the smartest intern you've ever hired. It's read every book out there. It's read the entire internet, but it's still kind of an intern. It still needs some good levels of instruction. And so what I'm seeing, and when I get the call as it relates to AI and teamwork, is usually there's a company that has rolled out, we all bought licenses to Copilot or Claude or what have you. They've rolled it all out. Adoption stalled somewhere around 15 to 20%. And people really don't know how to interact with it as a brainstorming buddy or as something that can really help them. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is we're in this world where every single meeting is being transcribed by 17 different AI note takers, and no one's thinking about what they can do with the notes afterwards. So something as simple as, hey, here's what I think the meeting was about, right? Here's the transcript that was just recorded. Did I miss anything? Something as simple as that can dramatically up-level your ability to collaborate with your teammates just by thinking about that. Other times you can get a complex document from somebody, let's say it's over in accounting and you're more of a marketing person and you just need a translator. There are all of these different ways that you can tap into artificial intelligence to help you understand your teammates better and then help you tap into higher levels of ideas. And candidly, nobody's doing it. They're all just talking about how can we offload this task into AI so we don't have to have as many people on staff next quarter, which is the absolute wrong approach.
I agree. You've worked in so many different industries. Is there a certain type of team or an environment, or maybe even an industry, where you feel like your message resonates most?
Yeah, I guess the easiest way to answer that is to tell you the jobs that I don't win, the gigs that we don't necessarily win, and that's usually when the transformation is almost too much. Case in point, I just had to deal with this. I was prepping to speak with a C-suite team. About 35% of my work is, hey, the whole C-suite's doing an off-site and we need to work. And I'm working with the chief learning officer and the person from HR, and it's all about building up that level of trust and psychological safety. And then I get an email that says, I don't think we're ready for you, which is a really weird email to get because I'm like, no, I'll roll up my sleeves, I'll do whatever it takes. And what they mean was basically trust was so bad on that team that they realized in prepping for the meeting that they were probably going to have to let one or two of those executives go. Why do I say that? I say that because most of the time I get the call when it's about taking the team from a 5 or 6 to an 8, 9, or 10. Candidly, when it's taking a 1 to a 5, that's something that usually has to happen internally. I wish 60 minutes or 3 hours could totally radically transform a team 100% of the time. But it's kind of like that old joke about how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? Well, only one, but the light bulb has to want to change. And so it's the same thing with my teams, right? When they know they want to, you've never heard, oh, it's an old, I guess it's my background. It's an old joke. But when the team wants to change, when they know we're doing well, but we need to be doing better, that's the ideal audience for me. And I wish I could say I was for everybody, but Gail, you've learned not every speaker is for everybody. And so sometimes I have to learn that through the events that I don't win.
Do you end up going back to the same company or often engaging in like a consulting situation?
So I candidly, from a pure work-life balance standpoint, my boys are 14 and 12, and they're both involved in a marching band and youth sports and what have you. So I don't do a lot of long-term on-site often engagements, but often when it's those senior leadership meetings or the C-suite retreats, there's always a follow-up, an aftercare. I learned that term from our mutual friend Ryan Estes. So there is the event itself, there's all the lead up to that event, and then usually there's some homework and things like that, and we'll meet together on Zoom 2 or 3 times afterwards to make sure the lessons stick. And I don't know if you're seeing it, I'm seeing that more and more for internal corporate events. And I love it because you actually get to see the impact of the ideas, not just the email afterwards that says, you were so great and so entertaining and your hair looked fantastic. Those emails are great. But what I really like to know is what's the transformation that happened afterwards. And so that usually happens in those ones. And then we have a team of folks that I like to recommend as follow-ups, right? As hey, if you really need a consulting team to get in there and roll up their sleeves, I have a few trusted vendors. But for me, I just really prioritize my time. And I love to say, how can I be most valuable with them? What's the right way to say this? The minimal amount of me so that I can serve other clients and be there for every soccer game. It's weird. It's weird to say that, but we're in that stage of life, so we got to focus on it.
You only get it once, so you're doing the right thing. I support that. If someone is listening and this is resonating with them from the standpoint that they're like, "Ooh, my team is stuck and I think our communication's off. I don't think we're collaborating as much as we need to. It's just not clicking."
Yeah.
What things could anyone that's listening start doing today to improve how their normal day-to-day team is working together?
Yeah. So, first thing I would say is let's diagnose where we're at. And the easiest way I like to do that with a team is a really simple question that gets at the level of trust and psychological safety on the team. And the question is simply, how often do people disagree with each other in front of each other? Right? Disagreement on a team, as long as it's task focused and it's about making the project or the company better, those are a sign of a healthy team culture. When there's no disagreement on the team, that's actually when it's likely that it's unhealthy, either because there is disagreement and nobody wants to admit it, or because everybody thinks alike, in which case we have no diversity on the team and we're not going to solve complex problems, right? So if there is, if you say to yourself, oh yeah, well, no, we never have a healthy debate on the team, well, then there's a trust issue there. And there's a whole keynote and framework I use called the trust loop that teaches people how trust is only the first step. Usually it's not that, we build trust over time, we build trust through similarities and through shared experiences and things like that. But all trust does is get people willing to be vulnerable, to take a leap of faith, be that disagreement, that differing idea, et cetera. And then afterwards, what they're looking for is respect, that my idea was heard, that I wasn't shut down immediately, that we had this sort of productive conversation. And so somewhere in those three is usually where that team's breaking down. If you're the leader and you think it's a trust issue, that's actually relatively easy. Just be willing to be vulnerable yourself. Say things like, I don't know, what do you think we should do? Talk about past failures and what you learned. If it's a respect issue, then we need to dive into how are we responding to disagreements? Are we taking them too personally and getting defensive early? Or are we having them in a spirit of sort of radical candor? So we have to look at where the team is and then where that breakdown is. But it's usually going to be that as a team, we either need to build a little bit more trust or we need to work on how we model respect for each other's ideas so we can keep that trust loop going.
I am so inspired. I just never tire of your work, and I think it's just a great reminder that just with small tweaks, all of our teams can be better. And I love that. If you are someone that's listening and you're planning an event and you believe that your audience would benefit from improved teams, improved collaboration, better communication, creating clarity and empathy, please give us a shout over here at GDA Speakers and we can explore bringing David Burkus into your next event. And David, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. This is really great information as always.
Oh, Gail, thank you again so much for having me. Whether it's the G team, the D team, or the A team, y'all are some of the best teams ever. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Backstage Pass with Gail Davis. Tune in for more exclusive interviews and pro tips to elevate your events. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts with us. We'll catch you next time behind the curtain on Backstage Pass.